In case you haven't got the clues, the message this morning is trust and obey. Trust and obey, for there's no other way to be happy in Jesus but to... All right, I don't need to be here. You guys got this down. You guys got it down. So these words aren't verses in the Bible. You know that, don't you? And so back in the 1800s, D.L. Moody was having crusades, very well attended. And people during his crusades would all of a sudden jump up and give a testimony. If you did that, it would scare me, but he enjoyed it. And one young man stood up and said this: I want to trust. I want to obey. And then he sat down. Well, the music director of the crusade, that struck him. And he actually, on his program, wrote down that sentence: I want to trust. I want to obey. And a few years later, he decided to do something with it, and he knew there was a hymn writer, a pastor in Los Angeles, a Presbyterian minister. And so he sent him that sentence. And he said, can you make a song out of this? And here it is. Trust and obey. From one young man's testimony, I want to trust. I want to obey. The words have been repeated millions of times. Interesting, isn't it? It's interesting what your testimony might accomplish. They were written by a man, and so the question is, right? Trust and obey, for there's no other way. It's not a Bible verse. To be happy in Jesus, but to trust and obey. Is that true or false? And so Wednesdays we dig deeper, don't we? That's going to be the first question I ask this coming Wednesday at the Bible study. Is there no other way to be happy in Jesus but to trust and obey? So you know that if you just breathe in and never breathe out, you're going to die. Right? And I hope you know that if you just breathe out and never breathe in, you're going to die. And so the point I'm trying to make, that you won't be happy in Jesus if you just trust, and you won't be happy in Jesus if you just try to obey. The song says, be it true or not, we will discuss that Wednesday. The song says, trust and obey, for there's no other way to be happy in Jesus. Trust. There was a correspondent, traveled the world, and actually he was looking for the happiest countries in the world. And the conclusion he came to was the happiest countries are where the population is a trusting population. They trust their government. They trust their leaders. They trust their neighbors. They trust just about everybody. And they were very happy. Let's see. Do we trust our government? Do we trust our neighbors? Do we trust our pastors? I'm looking. If I see one of these, Do we trust the media? So, this morning, who are you trusting? I hear it. Oh, I get one of these? Yeah, there you go. Isn't it nice to have someone to trust? Isn't it nice to have a book you can trust? Wow, that's wonderful. That's good news. There's people out there looking for someone and something to trust. Wow. And it's our job to say, hey. I've always found it interesting watching the scholars of the world discover the truths of the Bible that the Bible has been declaring since it's been written, and even before it was written. For instance, I went to the internet, and I'm thankful for the internet. You know, most pastors, Bible leaders, teachers, they end up with books. And the books can almost push you out of your house. There's so many books, you know. But the internet is a little small thing, and all the books are there. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. So I went to the internet and I asked this question. Who is the most trustworthy person in your life? And so I was expecting to see postings from people that talked about, right, the most trustworthy people in their lives. I thought that, you know, a little kid might post, well, I might trust my mom and dad, you know, or a husband may post, I trust my wife. More likely, I trust my dog. No, I'm just kidding. No, you know, but you know, and so these professors, but what I got, I didn't get those kind of answers. What I got was a bunch of professionals. They were psychologists, they were professors, they were human resource people, they were business giants. And all they wanted to do was let me know that they had discovered the traits of trustworthy people. And so I read them. And the sites were like this. They aren't very imaginative. These are different people from different walks of life doing different things, and yet these were the title of their site. 7 traits of highly trustworthy people. 9 traits of trustworthy people. 10 telltale signs of trustworthy people. 12 characteristics of trustworthy people. 16 traits of a truly trustworthy person. I had to go to all those sites, and I had to read the 7 traits, the 9 traits, the 10 telltale signs, the 12 characteristics, and the 16 traits. Guess what? The lists were almost identical. So I wrote it down. I thought, these guys talk to each other, or there's plagiarism involved. I don't know. But here are the traits of a trustworthy person. They are consistent. A person you can count on. Okay? They come through on their promises. That's good. They always show their true selves. Now understand, this is the secular part of our society that are discovering these traits. They are brutally honest. They listen to you. They're loyal through good times and bad. They're willing to make a sacrifice. They're honest, caring, selfless. They have integrity. They are kind, humble, and always available. Their actions match their words. They are always there for you. How many people do you know yeah, that's my friend. He's trustworthy, and he's all those things. Someone who has a trustworthy friend that meets all these criteria, really? Really? So I say to all the psychologists, professors, human resource officers, the business giant, and I holler at my computer and say, show me a person like that. They don't exist. You guys are all nuts. Is that what you're looking for when you hire somebody? I'm surprised you have anyone working for you. But then I say, you obviously haven't met my Jesus. He is all of those things and infinitely more. Wow. Wow, what a friend we have in Jesus. He's the only 100% totally trustworthy person anyone could ever know. Do you believe without a doubt that God is 100% trustworthy? I don't know if I should tell this story. It's been told so many times. There was this acrobat and tightrope walker. His name was the Great Blondin. And he strung a tightrope across Niagara Falls. Have you heard this one? So anyways, this was way back at the turn of the century, and he was going to walk across Niagara Falls. And there was a huge crowd there. And he asked them, first he asked them, can I carry someone across Niagara Falls on my back? And they said, oh yeah, you can do that. And of course, then he asked, I need a volunteer. And of course, there were no volunteers. Now, I've heard the same story with a wheelbarrow. Can you push a wheelbarrow across? Okay, I need a volunteer. And so this story has been around, but it is basically true. So I had to run it down, and the actual true story was, it was a person on his back. And he finally found someone to do it. And it was his manager. Because his manager knew him, knew his capabilities, and trusted him, you see. Isn't it interesting that the first thing we need to do is get to know him, know Jesus. And the more you know him, the more trust you have. Isn't that true? And so, trusting and obeying, now it gets a little more complicated. So if I trust God 100%, and God says, okay, Jim, I want you to sell your house, go down and live with the homeless in Las Vegas and minister there. You see? And so, well, I trust you. I'll put my home up for sale today. Not. When I was doing this message, the one thing I found out that's the most important thing to me is I don't trust him like I should. I'm not even close. Not even close. I sat down and I started to make a list, and I said, I'm going to be honest, God. I'm going to make a list of all the things that I would not do right now if you asked me, and I know why I wouldn't do them is because I don't trust you. And I started to make the list. And I got where this list is going to be too long. And all of a sudden, I begin to cry. I don't trust God. Wow. I was very sad. But for where I am, I'm trusting God to enable me to preach this message. I'm trusting God to do the Bible studies on Wednesday. I'm trusting God to make decisions for this church body concerning outreach and administrative matters. I'm absolutely trusting Him because I know I couldn't do it without Him. You see, I'm at that point. But boy, I got a long ways to go. A long ways to go. Never trust anyone but God completely. Love people, but put your full trust only in God. You'll be amazed at who said that. A younger generation wouldn't even understand or believe it. Lawrence Welk. Lawrence Welk. What an awesome statement. You know, it's my wife's favorite show. So, if I were to ask for a show of hands, and I never do ask, sometimes I'm really tempted. Do I trust God completely? Do you really? We try, but can we do better? And if we did better at trusting God, what would change in this church? If we did better at trusting God, what might we accomplish that we're not doing right now? What might happen to your neighbors and your relationship with them, or your relationship with family members, or if we trusted God? If we trusted God enough to obey. You see. Oh God, I trust you, but I'm not getting in that wheelbarrow. And if you say that, you're lying. You have to say, I don't trust you enough. I don't believe. Help my unbelief. Remember that? Oh, we need to start trusting. We need to start trusting God. What a change that can make in our lives. And so a word of advice. You can declare your undying trust for God, and He'll say, prove it. Prove it. You say you're going to trust, but then He says, okay, will you obey? And if you don't obey, then you know, He already knows, you know you don't trust like you should. I don't trust like I should. If I don't obey, then I'm not trusting Him, am I? To do what's best for me. And that's all He ever does. I'll never do anything but what's best for you. Not second best, not third best. I'll only do what's best for you. I'll only ask you to obey what's best for you. Do we believe that? Let's go like this. Everyone go like this. I'll feel better at this point. Okay. Yes, God will only do what's best for us, only ask us to do what's best for us. So if he asks us to do it and we don't, that says, I'm not trusting you to do what's best for me. You see? He tests us. He tests us on this obedience thing. You know, sometimes we do okay, sometimes we don't do okay. But we can see by the testing where we're at. He knows where we're at, but he wants us to see where we're at. You know, to be honest with yourself sometimes is difficult. You know, I get a feeling sometimes churches reach this level where I'm okay, you're okay, we're all okay. You know, we trust enough, we give enough, you know, we're committed enough. Yeah, it's all good. I mean, look at them. I'm doing as good as they are. Fine. It's not good. If we truly trust God, then we're going to recognize, right? God knows best. God knows best. That His Word is truth. His Word is truth. And that now we're determined to listen to Him and be guided by Him. What guides our lives? What is it? Is it us or is it Him? Who are we trusting with the things we do? Are we trusting ourselves or are we trusting God? And if we truly trust God, we're going to obey. We're going to want so badly to obey, to make Him happy, because we love Him, and because of what He did for us. Trust and obey, for there's no other way to be happy in Jesus but to trust and obey. So I'm going to talk about happy just for a moment. I have met a lot of miserable Christians. And the most miserable Christians are the ones who miss their old life. They miss the travel. They miss the parties. They miss the hobbies. It's all things in the... And they found no replacement for those things in Christ. In Christ. And they know that they're not where they should be, but they don't trust God to make them happy. They trust the things that made them happy in their old life. And you know what? They wind up miserable. Very miserable. God is a happy God. I believe that. I can't picture a miserable God sitting on the throne of heaven. Ooh, no. The gospel message is a happy message. Heaven, I'm hoping, in fact, I believe this, is a happy place. Not going to be any sadness in heaven. And I believe it makes God happy for us to be happy. To be happy in Jesus. Now there's a world happy and there's a kingdom happy. And they're as far apart as fire is from ice. There's two happies, but they're really different. Come Wednesday, we'll talk about that. Thomas Brooks, a Puritan preacher, he says, God is the author of true happiness. He that hath God for his portion is the only happy man in the world. John Wesley said, when we first know Christ, then it is that happiness begins. Happiness that's real. Happiness that is solid. Happiness that is substantial. Are you happy in Jesus? Really? So I'm going to end with just two questions. As we trust God, Is there anything in our lives we should be saying no to right now? If we trust Him and we know He's saying, stop it. Stop it. It's not good for you. Give it up. Are we willing to say no? I don't mean no, I'm not going to give it up. Are we willing to say no to what we're doing that's making us not be the person we should be? Second question, of course, is there something that God is patiently waiting for us to say yes to? Is there something you're not doing? The voice of the Spirit is always gentle and soft, but it's clear. There's no stuttering. There's no distortion in the Spirit's voice. You should be doing this. You should be doing this. Are you going to say yes? Do you trust God enough to say yes? Let's stand and sing our final song.